Hey, welcome to another edition of Resources Plugged In, the podcast about mining and finance. Today, we're lucky enough to have Mitchell Smith with us, who's really been an expert on the battery metals front for a number of years. And yeah, hey, welcome, Mitchell. How you doing?
Good, doing well, Kira. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
Hey, you're most welcome. Maybe for those of the viewers that don't know who you are, but maybe you could just give a bit of an overview in terms of a bit about your background and sort of how you got into the business.
Yeah, definitely. Again, Mitchell Smith. I'm Vancouver based. Been in the industry for about 15 years or so. Really fell in love with the niche market of the battery metal space a long time ago, and consider myself one of the early adopters into the sector. Primarily was focused on cobalt, but have really outreached into some of these other metals that are certainly critical for an electrified future.
And you know what you're involved with the Battery Metals Association of Canada. What sort of led you to get involved with them, and what do you do with them?
Yeah, Battery Metals Association of Canada, or BMAC, we like to call it, is really a voice for the industry and for Canada in terms of critical minerals, battery metals, and working with different organizations to ensure that Canada is really noticed within the supply chain. I think, given my tenure in the space, I was invited to join as a director of the association. And we've had a number of great initiatives over the last couple of years, and have really grown within the space. So we're very excited. We're very pleased with the way Canada is putting putting a pulse to the critical mineral space, and BMAC certainly has a loud voice in those efforts.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about the role of battery metals, how crucial their role is in this transition of to sort of a net zero carbon economy. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit more about how these metals are sort of essential for this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the critical mineral space is certainly paramount to an electrified future. Anywhere from cobalt, copper, nickel, lithium, manganese, graphite, you name it. I mean, it's instrumental in not only powering some of these batteries but also part of the technologies. We're talking about solar. We're talking about windmills. So and all the infrastructure that goes along with it. So the battery metals are really the foundation or the building blocks for this industry. And I think they're starting to get the attention that they deserve. But really, they've really run under the radar for a number of years. So we're playing catch up to a lot of other places in the world in terms of securing supply, production, and manufacturing of these critical materials.
Great. You kind of touched on a key one there in terms of accessing supply of metals, maybe in some new locations. We obviously are hearing quite a bit more about sort of like lithium and like pegmatites and spodumene and things like that. Outside of the traditional sort of forms of lithium. Back 5-10 years ago, when we are sort of first hearing sort of about lithium
Mhm.
exploration, it was a lot of like South America, salt flats and sort of salars. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the trends that you're sort of seeing in terms of I guess some of the areas now that are being looked at and why they might be looked at for battery metals?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, I mean, jurisdiction. You keyed on that right away in terms of jurisdiction has played a real key role in this, and recently we've seen this push towards onshoring or creating a domestic supply chain, or at least a regional supply chain. We're talking about having mines close to manufacturing or for refining sites, and then closer to the manufacturing hubs that go into the actual production of the battery cells, etc. So I think what one of the biggest trends is is this growth within the sector in terms of building supply close to actual source, or building infrastructure close to the source, and building out the manufacturing plants, the refining plants, and even having it close to that end use market. A lot of that comes from high cost and transportation costs nowadays. So there's a number of factors that really go into it. But what that's enabled is for places like Canada that are have a very good exposure to a lot of these critical minerals that are so essential. We're now being able to lead some of these efforts and attract in new investment from other places in the world to build out these manufacturing and refining capabilities. So I think it's very, very exciting. And it's not just the lithium side, but it's also, we're seeing it within cobalt and nickel and copper and manganese and others. So it's fascinating, and it's evolving very quickly.
Hey, excellent. And how does BMAC, or the Battery Metals Association of Canada, how does it sort of play into any of these trends that we're sort of seeing?
Yeah, so again, we really act as that voice for the market, for the sector. We have a growing community of companies that are partnered with us. Anywhere from junior exploration companies to much more advanced manufacturing groups, and even on the government level as well. So being able to bridge that and network and bring all of those parties together, and unify that voice is such an important aspect. And I think that's one of the things that really drew me personally to it as well, is being able to have that unified voice and be able to act as one out there, and really support an industry that Canada has such a vital opportunity to play in.
Well, why don't we switch gears a little bit and maybe talk a bit about what kind of also keeps you busy on the day to day. You're the founder and CEO for Global Energy Metals Corp. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the company, its strategy, a bit about sort of some of the resources and where its projects might be located.
Oh, for sure. I'd love to. So Global Energy Metals is a TSXV and OTCQB listed company, GEMC on the TSXV, and GBLEF on the OTCQB. We're an exploration company that's really focused on providing our shareholders investment exposure to the battery metal supply chain. And we were doing this through a kind of a multi-pronged approach. Being able to not only acquire and monetize projects, but partner with other industry peers to be able to see our projects advance. We've also taken strong equity positions in peer companies as well. So building out not only a project portfolio, but an equity portfolio. And in doing so, we've also been able to generate some royalties. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but it really does provide our shareholders exposure to the space. It does so in a non-dilutive way, because we've been able to use this partner approach where companies that we've joint ventured with, we have a carried interest on project development and advancement. Our motto isn't to own 100% of everything; it's just to own a bunch of little stakes that can then grow into something much more meaningful. I think one thing that does set us apart as well is, again, it's that jurisdictional opportunity that we see, and ensuring that the projects that we've identified and attracted in these peer groups to are in good, stable jurisdictions, have the infrastructure close by or close to manufacturing, so that they really have a strong opportunity to be part of the cycle that we're in today.
So it sounds like you're a bit of a project generator. I'm kind of a fan of those opportunities, because it tends to mean that you get to use the OPM, other people's money type approach, where you might be giving up a bit of ownership stake in exchange for somebody else kind of funding and developing the projects. Would I be right about that?
For sure, that's exactly the model. And again, having that exposure on the equity side and the royalty side as well really gives just that one little extra bit up on that. So. Yeah, very much. I like the other people's money. That's certainly key to this.
Yeah, for sure. It means you get a little further down the runway without having to dilute yourself. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe you could any recent sort of milestones, any recent sort of deals, any recent work that's been going on with any of your projects that we might want to speak about.
Yeah, we have a very strong portfolio, as I mentioned. There's a number of projects that we've nine individual projects in 4 different countries. So and again with that partnered approach, we're not over leveraged because we have that jurisdictional expertise and the technical expertise, and again, like you said, the capital that's backing it to advance those projects. We've seen a really great work program. We attracted in a group called Kings Rose Mining. It's an ASX listed company. They've committed $15 million to advance our Rona nickel copper cobalt sulfide project in Norway. They're well underway on a drilling program there on this brownfield project. So very, very exciting stuff that's happening in Norway. We also have projects in Australia that we recently were able to monetize for some royalties. The group Hammer Metals is a well-regarded copper explorer in the region. They really like the projects. We're able to, they see that there's some opportunity there. Again, in Australia, we have the Millennium Copper Cobalt project. It's being advanced by a group called Metal Bank. They've been able to double the resource there. There's some work that's being done right now to expand that resource even further. And they've been able to do so in terms of increasing the grades as well. So good stuff happening overseas. A little bit closer to home, we took 100% of a project in Nevada, or 2 projects called Lovelock and Treasure Box. And again, that was really a strategic decision by us so that we had full say in what we could do with this. And, we think these are very highly prospective cobalt, nickel, copper projects in Nevada, 100 miles away from Tesla and Reno. So, we think that there's some real good upside, and, we're looking at various options to see those projects advance as well.
Some great names for those projects. Sounds like a great opportunity for you to capture some value. Maybe we
For
could.
sure.
You kind of touched on copper a little bit. You mentioned it a couple times, and I'd be remiss if we didn't sort of talk a bit about it. It's often
Yeah.
referred as kind of the metal of the future due to its crucial role in the electrification and renewable energy technologies. Can you explain a little bit why copper is so important to this transition to net zero and how it intersects with battery metals?
Yeah, I think copper is central to this whole electrification trend, this net zero trend, and copper plays such an important role within that space, and there's so many different dynamics behind it with supply constraints and mine production dwindling and jurisdiction again being key to this. So, I think that there's a real interesting opportunity with copper. You and I've spoken before that, I've always been a cobalt guy, but really a copper person at heart in terms of, really seeing that copper is the metal of the future. And, we certainly need to explore more. We need to develop more. We need to we need to really modernize existing mines and look at greenfield exploration as something that's paramount if we're going to meet these supply gaps that are forecasted.
Yeah, it looks like from copper standpoint, the price of copper is going to have to go up if we're going to provide enough incentive for explorers and developers to really develop and bring new mines on. I guess part of that is if you look at the average grade of project and tonnage, the average grade has been going down, over the last, 30 or 40 years of copper production. It's dropped dramatically. I guess the easy copper mines have been already or easy copper's already been developed. We're having to go deeper and into some larger sort of tonnage larger capex type situations, where they're going to need to see that there's going to be consistency and in the price and higher prices to really incentivize them to plunk the money down to develop these. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't shy away from this $15,000 a ton, price for copper. I think that there's some reality to that, and again, like you said, there needs to be that incentive for miners to go out and develop, explore, and build these projects. I think there's Goldman Sachs had suggested that there's going to be a 10 million metric ton supply gap within the next 10 years, requiring over 150 billion US in investment in order to meet this. So, we're well down the path of being able to move this forward. And, again, it's these mines aren't all made equal. But we have a very strong opportunity in North America to start to bridge some of that gap. And again, it goes down to permitting and some of the politics that are obviously involved. But it's very interesting time for the copper supply market, and I think there's a lot of room for growth here.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for touching on that. Maybe we'll sort of broaden the horizon a little bit, move just beyond just sort of copper, and speak to sort of the whole sort of future of battery metals, sort of as a category. What do you think the future continues to hold for this sector? Have we already seen some of the best price movements already in the metals, or are we underestimating just how much we're going to need?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of pricing of these, as we've seen over the last 5, 10, or even past couple months, it's very volatile, right? And so we see these swings within the pricing, and I think that's part of some of the issues in terms of nobody can really gauge where those prices are going to be. But I think what we do know is that we need a lot more of this material if we are going to meet some of these very lofty goals for whether it's 2030 or 2035 or 2050. There's a full global initiative to move towards that net zero, and in order to do so, there's a massive amount of material that's going to be required. Copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium. I mean, all of these are paramount to that. And again, we need to look at where it's coming from, the ESG standpoint on this, the political and political standpoints in some of these areas, and what it means for trade relations. So and again, I keep going back to this, but Canada's in a very good space right now, and I think there's a lot of opportunity if we do things right, and if we ensure that we do it in a way that we can be part of this cycle.
Yeah, when you and I first met, it was related to a cobalt company, and I didn't really know too much about the importance of cobalt at the time. Maybe you could sort of speak to why, what sort of gravitated you towards it. Why did you sort of decide, hey, this is where I'm gonna represent this type of company? It's in cobalt sort of exploration and development. And then what made you sort of really sink your teeth into the sector and really become like Mr. Cobalt and Mr. Battery Metals?
Yeah, I mean, cobalt's a fascinating metal, and it's niche, it's small, and it's been small for quite some time. Obviously, the demand on the material side has grown, especially with the onset of electric vehicles, and even some consumer electronics that demand high percentages of cobalt within their batteries. But it was that niche aspect of the metal. 1% is mined as a primary metal, and most of it comes from Morocco. The rest is byproduct from copper and nickel production. The majority of it is from a country in Africa called the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, and there's been always a lot of political and social angst in terms of how that material was produced. And I'm a huge advocate for ensuring that there's mining in the DRC, and I believe that there's a way of doing it correctly. But I also believe that there's opportunity for diversification of the supply, and that's where I kind of wanted to sink my teeth into this, was looking at other countries that do have exposure to cobalt as a byproduct or a co-product. Canada, Australia, parts of Europe as well have strong potential, and in good, stable jurisdictions. And again, close to some of this manufacturing and processing and refining. So that's what really got me interested in it, and then realized that there's a tremendous amount of dynamics that go into a very small market, but very, very fascinating.
I think when we originally met, Tesla was really just sort of in a prototype stage. Back when they had like those very small Roadster, I guess the version 1.0, and it was like 0.00001% of sort of the car marketplace. Boy, has that really changed since you and I sort of first met, and really just how important battery metals and battery technology for that point has really sort of grown. So good on you for having the foresight to sort of see the industry and get involved so early. Do you see any other sort of emerging trends? You saw that emerging trend way back when. Are you seeing any other sort of now things that maybe we should keep an eye out? Things that you might be sort of doing for your global sort of energy metals?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different opportunities that are out there, and I think one of the big ones is going to be recycling. Recycling it will be a massive component to the circular economy, making sure that we have the right type of material that goes into this, and again, doing so in environmentally friendly ways and socially governed ways. So I'm excited to see that develop. And there's a lot of companies that are out there that are working through those type of programs. I think right now material is the main concern, being able to get that material in terms of being able to, as cars reach end of life cycle, and consumer electronic that have these metals in it come to the end of their life. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Some of the processing technologies as well, and using AI, for instance, I think is going to be really interesting in terms of identifying and fast tracking some of the development of these projects. We're working with a group called American Battery Technology Company. They just recently listed on the NASDAQ, and they're looking at recycling and processing of lithium, but they're also looking at ways how to process cobalt and nickel from existing from ore, and we've partnered with them with our Nevada assets to see if there's ways that we can improve extraction methods and techniques. And again, I think that these types of technologies that are out there are going to really be key. We've seen a lot of improvements within the direct lithium extraction, for instance, on the lithium brine side. Right. And again, as these things start to develop and move forward, it really gets to plug into the space and be able to move the initiatives forward.
Hey, excellent. I was going to mention DLE. Years ago, that was considered something that was not going to be, wasn't going to be commercially viable, maybe cost and technology, but it seems like those things are starting to catch up a little bit. So that's an exciting new trend. Also, you mentioned recycling. I was watching Apple's recent sort of keynote where they talked about their their iPhone 15 and some of their new watches and things like that. And batteries, metal recycling was certainly a big part of that for them. I guess it's something that such a valuable company like Apple can sort of do, but I guess the trick will be trying to offer compelling, reliable sort of recycling for smaller companies that don't have the supply chain staff and personnel and power of pricing such as Apple. But definitely something interesting I hadn't really seen mentioned before.
Yeah, no, it's there. It's a fascinating aspect of it for sure. And like you said, I mean, I think Apple has, some of the cobalt, for instance, is being recycled. Their aluminum is being recycled. So it's great to see. I think it's a fantastic initiative, and I think we will certainly see, as a lot of these materials come back full circle, that they're going to be able to be reused, and that's a key aspect to this.
Any other sort of final thoughts? Anything you want to wrap up here that we didn't touch on?
No, I think we've hit all the Cole's notes on the space, but no, I'm really happy to be on here. And again, if there's any ever questions and info needed on the cobalt or battery metal space, I'm always happy to be a guest. So thanks again for having me.
Excellent. And your company, Global Energy Metals, again, the symbols for that and where they might find a bit more information and get a hold of you?
Sure. So TSXV, GEMC, or OTCQB, GBLEF, www.globalenergymetals.com, and Twitter, Energy Metals. So we're very well covered in the social space, and certainly would love to for people to reach out and ask questions as well.
Hey, excellent. Thanks so much. We really appreciate your time, Mitchell.